Last summer, I watched a tomato plant go from yellow, droopy, and basically one watering away from the compost bin to standing back up with fresh green growth in under 24 hours. One pour. That's it. And here's the thing. I did this the wrong way for almost 15 years. I'd yank dying plants out, blame myself, and start over. Then, Gloria, my mentor down in San Francisco, showed me a mix she's been pouring on her balcony plants for 2 decades. It costs about 40 cents to make. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I mix it, when to use it, and at the end I'll share the one ingredient most people skip that's actually doing the heavy lifting. Let me give you the specifics on that tomato, because I know it sounds like one of those gardening claims that gets exaggerated in the retelling. It was a Cherokee purple, planted in the corner of my south-raised bed, and by mid-July it was yellowing from the bottom up. The lower leaves were curled inward like little cigars. I'd been ignoring it for about 4 days because I'd half decided it was a goner. I mixed up Gloria's tonic on a Tuesday evening, poured it slow around the base around 6:30, and walked away. By the next morning, and I checked because I genuinely didn't believe it, the leaves had uncurled and lifted. 2 days later, there was visible new green growth at the top node. That plant gave me tomatoes into October. Here's the thing. Most folks reach for a synthetic fertilizer the second a plant looks sick. I did this for years. It's like feeding a patient who can't digest food. The plant is too stressed to absorb anything, and you can actually finish it off by overloading the roots. The fix isn't feeding the leaves. The fix is waking up the soil around the roots. I'm going to walk you through this in 4 steps. Step 1, read the plant so you know if it's even savable. Step 2, mix the tonic, the exact 40-cent recipe. Step 3, apply it the right way because the timing matters more than people think. Step 4, the 24-hour window, what to do and what not to do while it recovers. And stick around to the end, because I'll tell you the one ingredient most people skip, the one that's actually doing the heavy lifting in this whole recipe. Step 1, read the plant. Before you mix anything, you have to know if you're looking at a plant that can come back or a plant that's already gone. I learned this the hard way after killing my first 3 tomato plants in a single summer back in 2017. I was pouring water, pouring fertilizer, pouring everything I could think of on plants that were already dead at the stem, and I just couldn't tell. So here's the test. Take your thumbnail and scratch a small line on the main stem, about 2 inches above the soil. If you see green just under the surface, that plant is alive, and you can save it. If it's brown and dry all the way through, or if the stem is black and mushy when you squeeze it, or if the stem is hollow, that's done. Compost it and move on. That's a $1 lesson, not a tragedy. Now check the soil. Stick your finger an inch down. You want slightly damp, not soggy, not bone dry. If it's soggy, the roots are drowning, and the tonic won't help until things dry out a day or 2. If it's dust dry, we'll deal with that in step 3. The signs your plant can be saved are the soft signs: yellowing leaves, drooping, slow growth, leaf curl without crisp brown edges. That's a stressed plant, not a dead one. If you see green inside the stem, you're in business. Step 2, mix the tonic. This is the whole recipe, and I want you to write this down or pause the video because the measurements matter. 1 gallon of room temperature water, not cold from the tap. Let it sit on the counter for an hour or fill the can the night before. Cold water shocks roots that are already stressed. Into that gallon, you're adding 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt. That's magnesium. And magnesium is what plants use to build chlorophyll, the green pigment in the leaves. When a plant goes yellow, 9 times out of 10, it's hungry for magnesium. 1 tablespoon, not 2. Then 1 teaspoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. 1 teaspoon. I'll come back to why that ingredient matters at the end, but for now, just trust me. It has to be unsulfured, it has to be blackstrap, and 1 teaspoon is the right dose. Then, a 1/4 cup of finished worm castings, or screened compost if that's what you have. You don't want chunks floating in your watering can, so here's what I do. I scoop the castings into an old clean sock, a tea bag kind of setup, tie the top, and drop it in the gallon. Let it steep for 20 minutes, then squeeze it out and pull it. The water will look like weak coffee. Stir until everything's dissolved. That's it. Let me give you the cost breakdown, because this is what surprised me the first time Gloria walked me through it. The Epsom salt, about 5 cents worth. The molasses, about 10 cents. The worm castings, about a quarter. And if you make your own compost, that part's free. 40 cents total per gallon batch. That's cheaper than a single can of plant food, and it actually works. Gloria has been pouring some version of this on her San Francisco balcony plants for over 20 years. She's 78 now, retired school teacher, 4 floors up with no yard at all. She's got a ginger plant in a container that's in its 3rd year, basil that reseeds itself every spring, tomatoes that produce into November. She doesn't buy fertilizer. She mixes this tonic when a plant looks sad, and that's it. The first time she walked me through it on her balcony in 2016, I genuinely thought she was holding something back. I figured there had to be a secret ingredient she wasn't telling me. There isn't. This is the whole recipe. Now, if what I'm showing you today is making sense, and you're starting to realize that you've been throwing money at sick plants and dead seedlings for years when the answer is 40 cents in your kitchen, I want to point you to something. I wrote a book called The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. It's $17 at backyardbuddybooks.com. Chapter 10 is the troubleshooting chapter, and it catalogs every failure mode that produces the yellow droopy plant we're rescuing in this video. Root rot, nutrient deficiency, overwatering, underwatering, leggy growth, fungus gnats. If you've killed a plant before and felt like the problem was you, that chapter walks you through exactly what the plant was telling you and what to do about it. backyardbuddybooks.com or scan the QR code on your screen. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the code. I'll wait right here. No rush. Take a second, pull it up. If you're on a phone or laptop, the link's right in the description. All right, back to it. Step 3, apply it correctly. This is where most people mess up because they treat this like watering, and it isn't. Pour the tonic slow in a circle around the base of the plant, not on the leaves and not in one spot. You want it spreading evenly through the root zone. For a small container plant, anything under a gallon, you're using 1 to 2 cups, no more. For a mid-sized container, 3 to 5 gallon range, use half a gallon. For an in-ground plant, pour a full gallon spread around the drip line. That's the imaginary circle directly under the outer edge of the leaves, because that's where the feeder roots are. Now the timing. Apply this in early evening. In Sacramento in the summer, that's around 6 or 7 at night, never midday. The reason is the roots have all night to absorb without the sun stressing the plant on top. If you pour at noon in 95-degree heat, the water evaporates off the soil surface before it gets where it needs to go, and the salt concentrates in a band that can actually burn the root hairs. If your soil is bone dry from step 1, here's the move. Water lightly with plain water about 30 minutes before you pour the tonic. That opens the roots up and gets them ready to drink. You're not feeding the plant. You're activating the soil around it. Step 4, the 24-hour window. This is where patience matters because the temptation is to fuss. Do not water again for 24 hours. Do not add fertilizer. Do not poke at the soil. The microbes are working, and every time you flood the root zone, you flush them out. If the next day is forecast over 90 degrees and your plant is in a container, move it to dappled shade, under a patio chair, against an east wall, somewhere it gets morning light, but not full afternoon sun. If the leaves are still curled the next morning, mist them lightly with plain water from a spray bottle. That's it. That's all the intervention you do. Expect your first visible response in 12 to 18 hours. The leaves uncurl, the droop lifts, the plant kind of stands back up like it remembered what it was supposed to be doing. Full visible recovery with new green growth at the top node usually shows by day 3. With my Cherokee Purple, the uncurl happened overnight, the lift was obvious by morning, and the new growth at the top was there on day 2. Gloria says she's seen plants come back in 8 hours on the balcony in summer. By tomorrow morning, you'll know if you caught it in time. A quick word of warning before we get to the common mistakes. The first year I started mixing this tonic on my own, I got greedy. I figured if 1 teaspoon of molasses worked, 3 teaspoons would work 3 times better. Within 2 days, I had a slimy gray fungal mat growing across the top of the soil in 2 of my containers. I had to scrape it off, flush the pots with plain water, and start the plants over. More is not better with this recipe. More is worse. Stick to the measurements, which brings me to the common mistakes. There are 3 I want you to dodge, because I've made all of them myself. First mistake, using table sugar or light pancake syrup molasses instead of unsulfured blackstrap. I did this once with a jar of light molasses I had in the cupboard because I figured sugar is sugar. Within 48 hours, I had a slick gray film spreading across the top of my soil. Light molasses and table sugar feed the wrong microbes, the fast, hungry ones that bloom into fungal slime instead of the slow workers that feed your roots. Read the jar before you pour. It needs to say unsulfured and ideally blackstrap. If the label says anything else, leave it on the shelf. Second mistake, using this on a regular schedule like you would a fertilizer. This is rescue medicine, not a daily vitamin. The Epsom salt builds up as a salt residue in the soil if you pour it in every week, and the microbe population gets thrown out of balance from constant sugar feeding. The plant ends up worse off than when you started. Use this only when a plant is showing real stress and no more than once every 3 to 4 weeks per plant. Third mistake, pouring the tonic on bone-dry soil. When roots are bone-dry, they're shut down, the soil repels water, and the whole batch runs straight through the pot without doing a thing. 30 minutes before you apply, water the plant lightly with plain water so the roots wake up and the soil is ready to drink. Then, pour the tonic. I told you at the start I'd share the one ingredient most people skip, the one that's actually doing the heavy lifting. Here it is. Unsulfured blackstrap molasses. 1 teaspoon per gallon. That's it. Most folks skip it because it looks out of place. It's a baking ingredient. It's sticky, dark, and it sounds like something that belongs next to a pie crust, not a tomato plant. The Epsom salt looks scientific. The worm castings look earthy and serious. The molasses just looks weird. So people leave it out, mix the rest, pour it on, and wonder why nothing happens. Here's what's actually going on down in that soil. The Epsom salt and the castings give the plant magnesium and minerals. But a stressed plant can't absorb minerals fast enough on its own. That work is done by the bacteria and fungi already living in your dirt. They break the minerals down into forms small enough for the root hairs to pull in. Without those microbes activated, the magnesium and the castings just sit there. The molasses is the wake-up call. It's concentrated sugar, and within hours of pouring it on, the microbe population multiplies and gets to work. Gloria has a saying about this, and I quote her on it every time. You don't feed the plant. You feed what feeds the plant. The first time I watched her pour this mix on a half-dead pepper on her San Francisco balcony in 2016 and saw it standing back up by morning, I stopped buying fertilizer. If today showed you what 1 40-cent pour can do for a dying plant, the next step is making sure you never have to pay for the ingredients again. The castings are the most expensive part of this recipe. And if you've ever felt like the problem with gardening was that you keep paying for bags of stuff that don't actually fix anything, I wrote the 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol for you. Chapter 6 walks you through composting in small spaces, the worm bin setup and the bokashi bucket, with diagrams for both, so you can make endless castings from the scraps already in your kitchen. It's $17 at backyardbuddybooks.com. It's the guide I wish I'd had 10 years ago when I was killing tomato plants in my Portland apartment. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. I'll wait right here. So that's how I bring a yellow, droopy plant back from the edge with a 40-cent pour and a 24-hour wait. No synthetic fertilizer, no panic, no compost bin funeral. Try it on one plant this week, the smallest, saddest one in your house, the one you've already half given up on. Drop a comment and let me know which one got the pour and what it looked like the next morning. I read them all. If you want to see the worm bin build that produces the castings for this recipe, I've got a walkthrough coming up that I think you'll like. Until next time, keep growing your own food, my friend.